Media today is not what it used to be. I guess this is the common sense to say something like that, but we have very few specialists now. We've got young journalists covering all sorts of topics, and they don't have the level of understanding that reporters on specific beats used to have. So today they're covering an accident, tomorrow they're going to cover a research story, the day after it's a political event. We also have a very diverse media landscape where you do have print, traditional print media, broadcast, but more and more the internet is a source of news. And we all have heard in the last 2 years, or past years actually, how much pressure this is putting on traditional media. People are reading less and less traditional newspaper and access their news on the web, for instance. So that's putting pressure on the media, and we need to approach it differently because of this. Also, with today's media, urgency is everything. It's very short attention span, and they go from one news to the next. So they need to access their information very quickly and in a format that they can easily understand and also translate for their specific readers. Very often the first thing we get is a phone call, and this is when the panic starts. But there's a system to this. If you know exactly how to respond to these calls, it'll make the whole difference in the world. We have a checklist here, and what you should do is really take the steps, put them in a sheet of paper, and put it on the board right beside your phone. So when you get a call like that, all I have to do is look at the list. Okay, have I done this? Have I done that? I'll go through the steps with you. First, get the name right. There's nothing worse than just taking down a first name, like I have this tendency to do, and oh, I forget the last name. Get the name of the program. Is this for the current, or is this for the téléjournal? This makes a difference in the time in all sorts of other elements. Once you get that information, and a phone number, of course. Once you have that, you have to ask them, what are you interested in? What's your angle? What story are you looking at? That will tell you right there, is this for me? So, because not necessarily every story is for someone. You may choose at some point say, no, this is not an area of research for me, but I could recommend someone else, a colleague of mine, who actually does research in this particular area. You also want to find out if they need any supporting information. And when I talk about supporting information is, very often they're not familiar with the whole issue, and there are sources of information that you can provide. Your website, for instance, a recent paper you may have written or released. That will give them the information needed to really ask the right questions about their story. You also want to find out who else is being interviewed. I did some work with the Canadian Foundation for Climate and Atmospheric Sciences. And of course, some people are doubting the scientific foundation for climate change. So if you get a call, as I was telling to these researchers, is that find out who else they're interviewing, because you may find out that, oh, this person who's against science is going to be interviewed. So already you get an indication that, okay, they want to have a confrontation, a controversy there. Do you want to get involved in this? So that's why or they say, oh, I have a great radio panel, I'd like you to be there. But you end up facing off with somebody who's totally against whatever they're going to say. Is this good? Is this a good format for you? So you want to find out about these things. You also want to find out about when is this going to air, what is their publication time, because that will tell you a lot about the lead time you have to gather your facts to answer questions. If you want to make the news, it's very important to determine what you want to say, what you want to get across. So there are certain things that you really want to focus on. First, obviously, is what it is. You have to describe what your research is, what you bring, who is involved, why is it important, and how is it making a difference. Again, that goes back to my first point, but it's not about the research, it's about the benefits. So, and this is what you try to convey, and that would be the basis for crafting your message. When you're delivering your message, keep your audience in mind. If you're talking to peers in university, you will have a certain level of language, you will talk about certain concepts, you will go in a certain depth in your presentation. So you have to decide who you want to target in the audience. Sometimes people talk to the media and they say, okay, I'm targeting policymakers because my research could help inform policymaking. So even though they talk to the media, they will frame what they have to say in terms of public policy. When you talk to a journalist, nothing is ever off the record. Never. Sometimes, you know, you talk to a journalist, we'll get into this in a few minutes, but you talk to a journalist, 15 minutes, 20 minutes in an interview, and it's pleasant, they're smart people, they're nice people, and then you think at the end, the interview is over. Well, a journalist is a journalist, So you may say something that they will find interesting, so always remember this. You keep a pleasant conversation going, but if certain things you don't want to say, don't say them. I'm going to show you an example of a very good clip. Guy Liberté, the founder of Cirque du Soleil, a couple of years back, was launching the One Drop Foundation for on water issue. And this is really, really well crafted. And if you read this, no one can remain indifferent when we know that at least every 8 seconds a child dies from a disease caused by drinking contaminated water. I mean, I was looking at it yesterday again, and no one, that means everybody, can remain indifferent when we know. That means there's a guilt trip right there, When at least every 8 seconds there's an urgency there. A child dies. I mean, that's drama. I mean, this is unacceptable. From a disease caused by drinking contaminated water, that's the problem. So really, you communicate what this is all about, why it's important.